Let me start with a Ralph Waldo Emerson quote. He says, "The first wealth is health." The first wealth is health. Many people criticize this administration for taking on health care at a time when people wanted jobs, jobs, jobs. And they said health care was not that important. So I asked myself the question, why health care? Well, certainly Ron Pollock has opened our eyes to the scope and scale of the challenge. Now, how many of you have ever needed quality health care and hesitated to seek it because you didn't know how you would pay for it? A few people in this room. How many have shown up at a hospital to get health care and found yourself subject to discrimination because of the nature of your health insurance? I remember many, many years ago when I was giving birth to my second child, and I had lost my first child, as many women of color do. That baby died in infancy. And so I was quite anxious about this second baby. And I had sought out the best doctor I could find, and I showed up at the hospital, and unfortunately he was away on a delivery. And so I showed up at the hospital, and I didn't receive immediate care, and then he finally did show up, and I was sort of over in the corner, and he came into the hospital, and he was irate, and he said, "Why is she not being prepped for delivery? Why is she over there?" And the young resident turned to him and said, "Well, she's black, and I assumed she was on Medicaid." So even if we provide Medicaid coverage at the degree and level that the Health Care Reform Act promises, we still have a stigma to deal with. And one of the wonderful things about the Health Care Reform Act, the Affordable Care Act, is because it will broaden the scope of its impact. It will help to destigmatize that. And that will make a huge difference. But that doctor said she's black, and therefore, poverty is racialized in our society. And the economic stratification that we see in our society is a result of a fundamental belief system that was embedded in the DNA of our nation for centuries. And that fundamental belief system is the mythology of racial hierarchy and the mythology of racial difference. What does that matter to those who are not at the top of that, to those who are at the top of that hierarchy? Well, my friends, we're all in this together. And as census data indicates very clearly, the demographics of this nation have changed considerably. Most of the children in this country, most of the population growth is among children of color. When Mr. Kellogg died and left his fortune to the foundation, and I must say the foundation and the company are two separate entities, he said, "Do what you will with the money so long as it helps children." So at the Kellogg Foundation, we revitalized our mission and our vision recently, and our focus is on the future of children in this country. We envision a nation that marshals its resources to assure that all children thrive. And in order to do that, we have to make certain that all children have access to a quality education, that they have access to quality food, health, and the potential to be in a state of well-being, and finally, that they have access to family economic security. And family economic security means that their families will have a life-supporting income, a livable wage. Now, that same baby that doctor almost caused me to lose is now 30 years old, and she is a force for change herself. And I recently watched a speech that she gave, which was broadcast to over 200 colleges around the country. And I don't know about you, but when I raised my children, it was my way or the highway. I was a pretty strong parent, and I convinced my kids that I knew everything and that I couldn't really do anything wrong. I'll never forget when my son was about 15 and he saw me make a mistake, and he said, "Mom, you were wrong." And I said, "That was an illusion." But at any rate, she said something in that speech that really, I was sitting there listening as if she was not my daughter, and she said, "The most important invention of this country." And I said, "Well, what was that?" She said, "It was the middle class." And why is the middle class the most important invention of this country? Because it gives people a state of being which creates a feeling of freedom, a feeling of security, a feeling of safety. It gives people this belief that they can achieve and they can accomplish and they can leave the world better and they can leave more to their children than they inherited. But in the last 2 decades, we've watched that invention erode to the point of potentially non-existence if we allow policies to continue that are in place now. And so allowing people to strive for economic security is fundamental to the American dream. And I know personally that microenterprise is fundamental to that. How do I know that? Connie told you a little bit about my history, but my passion for microenterprise was because I was a micro-entrepreneur, is that the term? And I raised 2 children as a micro-entrepreneur. And I have seen, particularly single parents, and I know many of you in this room probably have too, we used to have a term we called stone soup. Anybody ever read the book Stone Soup? You know, that's when you can make something out of absolutely nothing. And that's what micro-entrepreneurs can do. They can come in with an idea and create a business, and you probably didn't believe they could do it because the business seemed so far-fetched. But they were able to make it work. And oftentimes, for people of color, that is the only avenue to success. It is the first avenue to affirmation and the realization of capacity to create something out of nothing, to create something out of a society that says, you don't matter, a society that says no. So I'm pretty excited about the potential opportunity of partnership between the Urban League and AEO, because we are all in this together. And if minority communities are not allowed to realize their full economic potential, it does not bode well for the future of our nation, which is rapidly becoming majority minority.